Okay. All right. Welcome. Yeah, welcome to the first Ask Me Anything about automations. I'm really excited to have you all here. I have 4 prepared questions, right? So first is a question from Rebecca. Hey, Rebecca, in the chat. Welcome. Is around managing duplicates. So I did a series with Geo about... oh, hey, Sei. Welcome. Excited to have you. Drop your questions in the chat. Man, this is so exciting. I'm like, I can't... I'm going to be so interrupted by all the questions that I fear like I'm not going to get through them. Oh, no, I forgot to close my door. 1 sec. Okay, we'll edit that out in post. Okay, so let's get to it. I'm gonna get to it. So Rebecca's question is, related to a series we did around Airtable scripting, and one of the things we did in that series was how to identify duplicates automatically. So Rebecca's question is, okay, once you've identified a duplicate, could you merge them in the script, right? So one way to merge duplicate records in Airtable is using the dedupe app, right? But what that requires is like a human, aka Rebecca, to actually go in and dedupe manually. And the risk there is that you might have like multiple duplicates by that point, and you might be in a situation where you're not sure. So what, if I'm understanding Rebecca's question properly, is how could we dedupe on the fly, merge information? So you say you have 2 records, one of a duplicate of another, so that we can override the existing information with the new information, and then potentially delete the record. So Rebecca, I think you're in the chat. Let me know if I understand that question correctly. And yeah, let's do it. So I do think a script is the right solution here. Primarily because we already have a script to dedupe information. And then second, because like once you have a script, you can really kind of do whatever you want. You're not limited by existing primitives. So let's imagine I have duplicates, right? So I have these 2 records. I have an email, which will be kind of my identifier of duplicates. So I clearly have 2 that are duplicates. And what I want is the new value, the second record that was created, to override the first one. And so that new value goes into old value, and then we delete this record because we know that it's a duplicate. Hey, Penny, good to see you. So Rebecca, let me know if that is like the right way that you kind of thought about it. And we could generalize this to like, what if you have 10 fields that you need to override? What if you want to only override those that are not the same? Things like that. Okay. So how we're going to set this up is actually through an automation with a script. So when a record comes into this table, what we're going to do is check whether it's a duplicate of any existing record. And then what we're going to do is override the field that we want to override if it does find a duplicate. So that is going to be kind of the outline of that. Let me know if that makes sense. So first, we're going to do an automation. So that says, check for duplicates. Oh, Peter, don't worry about the form. I'll get to your question at the end, right? So we're going to do kind of the prepared questions first for folks who submitted through the form, and then we'll do kind of open Q&A. Cool, awesome. So it seems like I'm on point with the question. Okay, so when record is created, in our duplicates table, we're going to run the test. That should give us, hopefully, doesn't matter which one it finds. Boom. So it found this one, right? So that's great. That's what we want. And then we're going to write a script. So we're going to run script. Now I'm going to cheat a little bit, and I'm going to go to the script marketplace. And I know that we have a duplicate, find duplicate. Hey, Robert, good to see you. Glad you're here as well. Delete duplicates. Oh, this wasn't the one I used. That's do we have another duplicates? Where did I find my duplicates? Is it in examples? Mark duplicate. Okay, that's what we want. So this one's in the example, and what I like about it is that it assumes that you're running on an automation. right? So let's quickly, I know that this isn't like the largest type. Is this better? How's that? Is that too large? Let me know. Oh, it doesn't actually change much, does it? Okay. Yeah, it's a great question, Cup. I'll answer that at the end. Unfortunately, there's no book, but happy to, let me kind of note that. Cool. Okay. So just walking through this script, what this does is that it gets the information, checks for duplicates, and then just creates a linked record that says this is a duplicate of what exists. I can't remove this say, so it's really unfortunate. Maybe this is actually better, right? So you can see more of that. Yeah, Colleen, if you could collect questions, that'd be great. I really appreciate that. And yeah, awesome. I would love that. Cool. Okay, so let's set this up. We want this to check for in duplicates. And what we want to input, right? So this is saying, okay, what record should we kind of input to check duplicates? We have that from step 1, right? So we're going to call this record ID. And the value is going to be record ID from step 1. So this is saying, okay, the record ID we want to check against is this one right here. And this is actually ready to run, right? So what this is going to do is that it's going to say, it's going to go and check whether there are any other records with the same name. Now, Rebecca, if your duplication, if you're like, what should be your, what you want to test, how to say this differently, what your conditions need to be to you consider a duplicate, you can change this, right? So you might say record name, duplicate equal name, and something else, right? So a second condition for it to be a duplicate. Maybe you want same email and phone number. So that's something we did in the stream, so I'm not going to do that again. So what this is going to do, if it does find a duplicate, it's going to put it into found duplicates and then create a linked record based off of this right here. Okay, great. Yeah, so this is exactly the same script. So let's go ahead and run it. And what this should do is create a linked record that says that the record we just created in our table is a duplicate of this existing record, right? But that's not what we want to do. What we want to do is actually go ahead and take this value and update the existing duplicate with the new value and then delete this record. So really those are kind of the two steps we need to do. So we just need to kind of edit the record, right? So what this does, it says, okay, update the record async of the record we just inputted, right? So take this record from the record ID, go into the duplicates field name, which is an array, and then input found duplicates. That's not what we wanted to do in this case. What we want to do, we still want to go to table. We still want to update record async. But the record we want to update is this found duplicate, right? And if I'm not mistaken, let's actually console log it. Let me see what that looks like. I get very stressed out coding on stream because this works great when I'm by myself. Works terribly when people are watching. Okay. So this is it's an array with, we hope that there will only be one duplicate, right? Because we're deleting them as we go, so we shouldn't find multiple. So I can say go to space 0, right? ID. So this is going to return the ID of this one right here. So let me run that again. Okay, so that gives me the ID. And let's just check if we're looking at the right one. Right here. RZ like this. That seems to match. It does. Okay, great. So this is the record we want to update. So when we're updating a record, we need an ID. So we can go found duplicates, position 0 -ID. And then we have to put an object of what we want to update. What we want to update is field 1, and this you could just kind of change with your fields. And what value do we want to put to field 1? It is record ID, is record dot get cell value of field 1. So how I got there, so let me just put kind of just like that. If I go into console.log/record, let's just do that. This is the record that we're getting, right? So we're saying, okay, this is the new record. What field we want is this field 1. But again, this could be email, whatever you want to override the existing value. There we go. So let's undo this. Great. So now we're saying go to field 1 in the old record, get the value from the new record. And now, if this works, we have new value in field 1, and we've overwritten the duplicate with what we wanted. And now once that's done, we can do await table dot update record async. No, it should be delete record async. Delete record async. We want to make sure we're deleting the new record. So I think it's record dot ID. I've never deleted a record in a script. So hopefully this works. So this should blah, blah, blah. And if this works, are we doing success chat for folks who come? Are we doing success every time we succeed at one of these, or are we doing them at the end? I vote for success every time we solve one of these questions, right? So that's my vote. Let me know in the chat what your vote is for when we do success. Okay, so what this should do, should update the existing value with blah, 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 and then delete the last email, this record right here, and then we should just be left with that one. And Rebecca, when you're kind of doing this on your end, make sure to have like little logs of what you're deleting, like, hey, record has been deleted, things like that. Because yeah, you don't want to like delete records and not realize what you're doing. So, okay, let's test this out. Okay. Boom. All right, that's a success right there. What did I bind my success to? There we go. Oh, where's my confetti? Oh no. Let me get the confetti going. That's no good. Let's do that again. Oh no. Did confetti go down for y'all? No. Let's do that again. Okay, I got confetti there. There we go. There we go. Must gotta get the confetti going. Awesome. Great job, folks. Okay. So I feel like we solved this one. Oh, Rebecca, any questions before I move on? I'm drinking a Diet Coke. Great question from Babis. Look at that. I got the chat. I can bring in the chat on the stream. Pretty cool, right? Love it. Awesome. Love to hear it. So impressive. Boom. Okay, so that was number 1. Clean. Love it. Love it. Yeah, this one, thank you, Rebecca, for the softball. Appreciate it. I don't know if that was a softball. It's one of those things that, you know, feels difficult, but the flexibility of Airtable, you know, gives you so many options. And so it's sometimes hard to, what sometimes feels simple. But hopefully that unblocks you, Rebecca. Really appreciate the question. Okay. Let's go into, whoops, there we go. Question number 2. Look at that. I've got the agenda. We're now with Matt's question. Here we go. I think I have the Loom open here. I'm going to let Matt speak for himself. I'm going to put you on 1.2x there, Matt. You can leave. Well, I'm pressing click here if you don't want to hear it. It's happening now.
Where do I look? Let me, whatever, we'll just get into it. Hi, Aaron. I had a question about how social accounts can sort of connect to Airtable. So let's say I have a database of 100 people, and some of the fields are links to their Twitter account, to their Instagram account, to their TikTok account. Is there any way that I can create another field that pulls from those websites, from Twitter, from Instagram, from TikTok, to provide the number of followers at a specific moment in time? I've been trying to sort that out and figure out if there is a way to do that, but hopefully you'll have some direction. Thanks for doing these streams, and go Airtable.
Awesome. Okay. Great question from Matt. So I'm going to kind of rephrase the question, Matt, and let me know. So what I understood from that, by the way, go Airtable 100%. So imagine I have, social accounts, right? I should call this social accounts. By the way, that wasn't that bad, Matt. You sounded great. You should come do stream. I should have brought you on the stream next time. Next time we'll bring you on. Okay, so imagine I have a person, right? Myself, Jeff. I have a Twitter handle, right? I should get better at naming these things. Instagram handle. And what my understanding is you want to output like a Twitter follower number, an Instagram follower number that is automated, right? So you want to reflect the latest Twitter numbers or keep an existing number for, to track over time, right? So let me know if that's a good understanding. I have good and bad news for you, Matt. The bad news is that depending on the social media account you want, it is very hard or very easy. So Twitter is very easy. So Twitter lets you kind of, it's almost public information, right? So they have an API. You input a username and it'll output the Twitter followers, right? And so if you restrain the question to Twitter, Integromat can provide that information. Now, I rarely talk about Integromat. And so yesterday I kind of played around with it somewhat. And this is the thing where are my, okay. So they have like a Twitter on a schedule, go ahead and get a user, right? Twitter and Instagram. Okay, so Twitter you can do here, right? So you can do on a schedule every hour, create an Airtable, loop, right? So I'm not an Integromat Pro. What you would do is every day, for instance, right? So they have like a timer. I think it's like a time. Oh, it's right here, right? So at regular intervals, go to Twitter, and you would have to have an Airtable one, right? So go and get a table from Airtable. And then search records, right? This will be on a timer, and then you would go on a loop for each one of these, go and get the Twitter number for that specific user. Now, Integromat's pretty cheap. This is going to cost you about $9 per month, and you're going to be able to get Twitter followers. Now, I'm not going to do that. I'm happy to do it with you async, but I do have a better solve for you, but that requires scripting and is much more expensive. So after a lengthy Twitter discussion, so if anyone wants to, if someone could drop the tweet with the social media API I did yesterday, Colleen, if you can find that and drop it in the chat. People had a lot of suggestions about how to do this in one platform at once. A lot of folks recommended Rose, which just does what we just showed natively, right? and it just pings this API. So I don't think that was a good solve. But one person, I think it was No Code Jack, that recommended this third-party API called Social Blade, right? So Social Blade is a really simple API that just says, let me zoom in a little bit here. Okay, take this URL, right, like that, input the social media platform you want, and then the account handle, right? So if you, Matt, only want Twitter, you would just put Twitter here, and then Instagram, you would just change it to Instagram. So this would be 2 API calls per row, per record. And that way you could do a really simple script, right? So I've actually already written that script. Now, Social Blade is relatively not expensive. I think it's about $50 per 100 API calls. Now, again, I actually don't find it like crazy expensive. Payments, I don't know. Yeah, so you can get 100 credits for $50. I don't know how much time you're spending, Matt, on getting this information. For me, if you are a social media manager and this is important to you, that feels like a $50 well spent. Again, I can't test it out. There's no like free tier, but I can give you the script, right? So the script looks like this. Let me go back here. Add a schedule time. So I have an automation that says, every weekday at 4 p.m., but you could have it every month, right? Whatever schedule you want to update this information. And it really just runs like a very simple, oh, actually, this was me trying to do something else. I was trying to get the HTML. Is it this right here? No, I can just write it again. I'll just write it again. Let's write an automation that says social media numbers. So Matt, let me know if this is like a good solution for you. So you just go, let's say on every Monday, let's go ahead and run a script. And all this is going to do is come here. Right, so it's just going to go, let social media count equal, it's going to be fetch. Let me just get the fetch example here. Fetch. We got to await, fetch. Now, I'm not going to be able to run this because I don't have any credits for it, right? Yeah, once or twice per month at 1,500 records. So you're looking at you can get 10,000 for $200 or $2,000. So 1,500 would be $1,000. That's pretty expensive, right? So the question, this is a good question. So I went down the scraping route. So sorry, let me just finish this. So Matt, you would have to run this API, right? Just do a simple fetch call, and I'm happy to get you set up on this, right? Like this. And you would have to run this for every record in your table. And then you would just input here Instagram, and here would be the value from the record. So again, I'm happy to kind of work with you to get that going. And there's a good note in the chat. Here we go. I'm going to bring it up. So use the API, right? So you can just get the free Twitter API to get Twitter numbers. And then that would reduce your API calls by half for this one. And I think there were in the thread a few more options for APIs to do this. which I think are all paid, but that's how I would do it. CSA, thanks for coming. So you would do, you would get the table for every record, loop through it, input their handle here, put your token, and then it would return something that looks like this. I love how I'm just like waving the hard part. So I'm like, yeah, it'll return a JSON that you parse. And that's partially because I'm a little afraid to do it on the stream. But here we go. We have some, here, there we go. And it looks like this, right? So you would have to go to .statistics, subscribers. So that's my solve for you. I tried going down another route where I would get the HTML of the page and try to target the CSS specifier for followers, but Instagram and TikTok are all smart enough not to divulge that information on from a get API call. So really, Matt, the answer I have for you is unfortunately third-party APIs. But for Twitter, you can use Integromat. So I don't know if that was what you were expecting. I wish I could get you further along here. But that is the best solve I've come up with. Awesome. Well, listen, Matt, if you want, if you do get some credits for Social Blade, come back on the stream and we'll do it. We'll do it live. We'll do a proper API call. So here's an example. Instagram is probably the one we're going to have to do. And I'm happy to do it live on the stream. Very simple. Well, relatively simple. I shouldn't say that. You get the table for every record. You get the handle for Instagram. You input it into this URL. Right here, you input that. It's going to return a thing that looks like this. You get the followers number and you update the record with that value. Now, if you are paying, I don't know, $50, $70 for every one of these runs, I would recommend not overriding existing values, but creating new records. Just that way, so if something goes wrong, you still have your existing numbers and it's just kind of not so costly. Otherwise, I think there were some other APIs in that Twitter thread. Okay, cool. Well, I hope that helps. Sorry, Matt, if I couldn't go the whole way. Okay, great. So the next question we have here. So are we doing success? I feel like that one wasn't really a success. How do we feel about that? Let me know. I can do a success. I feel like the world needs more confetti. There we go. Some confetti. I think that's good. If you're closer than you ever will, that's great. Okay. This one is a really good question from John out of the community. So John has, okay, great. I really appreciate that. Yeah, so some folks did remind Phantom Buster as an example of for scraping. And I'm happy. I think I might have a stream I might have a stream coming up on scraping with yeah, so I might have that scheduled. So I might actually have a upcoming stream on Phantom Buster. Matthew, if you can't post a link, send it over to Colleen on Twitter maybe, and she'll be able to post it. I'd love a solve for shortcuts to do this. But I think those are one by one, right? So you would have to go one by one to each account, and I think that's what Matt is doing now. Awesome. Okay. Okay, next one. This one's a particularly, there we go. Okay. So John in the community asked what I felt was a very intriguing question, which was, he has a base with meetings, and what he wants is, okay, well, how much time is it going to be for me to go to that address, right? And can I have that in his Airtable base? Why I thought that was like a particularly interesting question, because I used to work at a company called Local Logic, where I actually learned a lot of like things like geocoding, and not that I know how to use them per se, but a lot of our job involved querying these APIs to be able to get route distance and things like that, and geolocation. And what I learned in my time there is it's really not simple, but there are very smart people who solve this for us. So here, what I'm going to kind of propose is two ways of doing this. One is the no-code hacky way using Google Maps, and another is actually like diving deep into some APIs. So thanks for coming, Matt. I'll see you around. Let me know if you need some help on that script. Okay, so imagine I have a meeting, right? So let's call this meeting 1. And it's this right here. So I have to go from this address to this address. Now I'm keeping this simple. This is in Montreal, right? And let's say this person just said like that. I'm just, I was on the phone and I just wrote it down, right? And I don't want to autocomplete. I don't want to do anything. I just want the distance from here to here. Now, what I think John would do today is to say, okay, well, let me go into Google Maps, input address 1, copy paste information, right? So copy paste this, copy paste that, and then get this number right here, which is driving, and then 3 minutes, right? And so they would return 3 minutes. So drive time, and then it would be 3 minutes, right? So the first way to shortcut this, making this much simpler, is actually just by looking at the way Google Maps structures their URLs, right? So I'm just going to copy paste this in the chat, right? And if you look at that, what you'll see, I don't know if it's visible, I can't zoom into the bar, but it's always the same structure, right? So it's saying /map/dir for direction. And then it takes kind of the first address and then the second address, and then adds a bunch of stuff to it. But what you can see is that actually, if I remove parts of this, Google is smart enough to still figure out where I'm trying to go. So what you can do is actually just be like, oh, if you know the starting point and the ending point, well, you can just reconstruct this URL in Google Map, in Airtable, and then just have a button that at least brings you to this point, right? So let's go ahead and do that. So what I did here is that this takes, should I zoom in here? Is that better? Yeah, that should be better. That's a little better. Okay. So this takes the beginning of the URL, right? So I can drop this in the chat as well. That's better. And then encodes the URL component, which is the starting address, and does the same thing for the ending point. So encode URL component just means take this bit of text and change it such that the URL is clickable, right? So I want a URL that I can just click into. So if I was just to put the text, there would be spaces, and then that would break the URL. So this is just saying, take the starting point as the first parameter, put a slash, and then take the ending point as your second part, right? So if I click this, if all went well, see, it brings me back to that exact same place, right? And I can just select car, and then so I've saved the need to copy paste information from from Airtable by reconstructing the URL. And what's cool about this is that it leverages kind of the fact that Google is really smart to autocomplete as well. So I haven't tried this, but maybe I could just do, not even say the city, right? And Google's going to be smart enough to say, oh, like I understand where you're going, right? This one, it wasn't smart enough. So that's one tip. So that was solve number one, which is the easy solve. I'm not going to do success on that one. That one feels too simple. I don't know if is John in the chat? Hopefully. So that was the easy solve. Actually, let me undo. I don't know if I use those. The harder solve is, okay, well, what can we actually output drive time automatically, right? This is actually it's much harder, right? Because I need to autocomplete the starting point. I need to autocomplete the ending point. That way, those two are like real addresses that we can understand. And second, can I then route between those two locations and return the drive time? Now, I wouldn't be showing this on the stream if the answer wasn't, yeah, you could probably do that. And I would not know the answer if I hadn't spent a lot of time at the old company, playing around with things like this. So I'm going to provide a very high level solution here. And again, if anyone's interested, I'm happy to spend some time to actually write out the scripts. But the tool I'm going to use here is called Here API. So Here API, I think it's a spin out from Google, if I'm not mistaken. And they have these great developer tools, which are all REST APIs that you can query to, essentially rebuild Google Maps. So like if you ever want to rebuild Google Maps, Here API is what you would like to do or to use. So in order for what we want to use is the routing API, right? And the routing API, what it does is that, let me do kind of, do we have a very simple use case here? Send a request, that's what I want. Okay. Yeah, so does Google allow you to get routing as an endpoint? I'm not sure. This will replicate the same thing. And maybe you could actually use the Google Maps API. I'm just not very familiar with it. And this was like a very simple get call. So here, how this works is essentially you take this, you say, take the endpoint. Is that clear enough for y'all to see? Maybe I can zoom in here. There we go. You say, I'm going by car, and then all you need is a lat long for your origin, a lat long, longitude, latitude, longitude for your destination, and then you say return a summary. What that's going to return is something that looks like this. It's going to give you multiple routes. We're going to assume that the first one is always the best, and then it's going to say summary, duration, 243. I think that is in minutes, if I'm not mistaken. So we could actually do this relatively easily if we had the lat long, right? So we can take this starting point, get the lat long, this ending point, get the lat long, and then be able to call this endpoint. But we obviously don't have the lat long, right? So that's a second API call that we can do is, right? So let's say we want to get the lat long from an address. Again, here is going to be our savior here. So it's called geocoding. Where is the geocoding? Here, geocoding search API. Very simple, similar API call. So let's go quick start guide. It's actually simpler than the one we just saw. You essentially just say geocode this endpoint and you input some text, right? Which for us would be this right here. And then with your API key, and it's going to return the lat long positions. And then we run an API call with the lat long of the origin, lat long of the destination, and we grab that drive time between the 2 points. Now, again, this is one of those situations where I'm not going to show the whole thing, but I will show the kind of bare bones of how to do it. So I wrote a quick script here. Now I should name my scripts better because I don't see what they are. Here we go. Okay. So let me zoom out. We'll actually see a little better. How does that look? So here what I do is I do that first API call for an origin address. So let's say 6,900. Or what do we have? We had 6,000 origin, right? So this is this right here. That's our origin point. And that's going to return the lat long for that origin point. Oh, my API key is expired? Oh no. Let me try to figure this out. Do you want me to go through and run the API calls, or just an overview would work? Let me get a new API key. Oh, that's cool. So you can actually get the info from a calendar invite. So Google Calendar will tell you that in the API cup. Let me get my, there we go. I should have that. Where's my dashboard? Can't seem to find my dashboard. That's where I was. Projects. There we go. Create API key. Okay, I'll just change the API key. Okay. And see, that returns the lat long of the origin, right? And then what I do is I run a second API call with those lat longs in that API key, and I return a summary. Let's run that. Oh, I forgot to change the API key. There we go. Run that. And it's going to return a route. And it's telling me that that takes summary 478, right? Which I imagine is in seconds. And so it's a 5-minute car drive from point A to point B. And it gives you a bunch of other information. So you can just take that duration, write it back to here, and then you'll have the drive time. It'll even kind of give you the route exactly if you ever want to get fancy. But yeah, those are the two solves that I have for that one. So I don't know I don't know if that's a success. I feel like whenever I show an overview, but I don't give you that bang for your buck where you can see it in action, it's not as fun. So maybe in the future, I'll always kind of make sure that I loop it back and get to a solution. So let me know in the chat if that makes sense. But I do think for most purposes, this first solution where you just have the URL, and we can even build a little button. So get route button. So open Google Maps. And then we can just say, go to URL. I think in most cases, this solves that solution for you. And actually makes it much easier just by reconstructing the URL. So I don't know if David or John is here with us, but that is my solve for that. We do have 10 minutes here. I did want to go to a question from Robert around recording video at scale. I do want to take 10 minutes to kind of do open Q&A. So Matt or Matthew or anyone else, Colleen, did you have some questions that we wanted to get to in the Q&A? And if not, I can do the recording at scale. So we're here. Let me see if there are any questions. So now would be a good time to drop a question in the chat. I did see some at the beginning. Oh, 2 questions. Awesome. Let's do it. All right, let me try to find Peter's question. Oh, you've even got him in a doc. That's amazing. Okay, so first question, let me drop it into the chat. Let me bring it up like this. Oh, great, you've already got it. Okay, so question from Peter. Yeah, so essentially I'm not a pro at setting up backends, but you essentially just create like a cron job, right? Similar to, so there are 2 ways I think of doing this. One is to set up a polling. So it's going to check every X minutes for, new information and then send that information elsewhere. So that's one. So you actually need like a server to send those requests, just like Zapier does for you. And the second is via webhooks. So it waits for an alert from that application to say something has changed. You need to go ahead and do this. I wouldn't necessarily kind of think about all or want to set up all the infrastructure to do that. When you think about it with Airtable, and obviously I'm going to kind of recommend Airtable because that's what I do. When you think of those 2 things, the first one is you can do it in Airtable, right? So because Airtable just lets you write your own code, you could say, okay, every hour API call, so that says, at a scheduled time, every 24 hours, run this script, right? And that script is code. It's JavaScript, right? It can do pretty much anything you want it to do elsewhere. Go ahead and write your code here. And then otherwise, if it's more of like something is happening elsewhere in Stripe, MailChimp, whatever, and you want to update things elsewhere, right? You can just use when webhook received. So webhook here. So you post this URL into the application that's sending you webhooks, and then you write a script, right? So those 2 options are available here. I wouldn't know, to be honest, how to do that outside of Airtable. I'm not proficient enough in writing code, but I imagine there's like a pretty simple service that lets you do that. Or you would probably do it on your own computer as well, right? So just have your computer be the origin of those API calls. I feel like I answered that very poorly. I should have just said I don't know. Okay, next question. Cool, awesome. Let me get the second doc. Awesome. Yeah. Question here. Oh, awesome. Okay, great. I'm happy I answered your question, Peter. And also, like, if you want to know how to do it as from scratch, shoot me a DM on Twitter, and I'm happy to put you in touch with a developer that can help you do that. Okay, books. Yeah, I don't know. I personally really enjoyed the Phoenix Project, which was a book around process and more like Kanban and things like that, mainly because it was very relevant to what I was going through in terms of having bottlenecks. I don't think there's like a good book out there talking about, this just new era of like having the ability as a non-technical person to create in-depth complex processes. What I will say is that the technical part, everything we do here is, I believe, the less important part. I think the most important part in building out complex processes at scale is convincing people that it's worth doing, inertia, and people are resistant to change in a very good way, because what they've been doing is clearly successful because the company exists. And so I would be, I would focus less on how to connect tools, how to use Airtable, Notion, whatever, and focus more on how do I convince people to, improve their processes, or how do I onboard people the right way? How do I get people to collaborate? More so than like the finicky part we spend a lot of time here on the stream. I hope you'll still come to the stream, even though that's not the most important part in at scale automation. So those are my thoughts, and I'm happy to, maybe I'll tweet out after the stream if anyone has any suggestions. Yeah, hopefully that answers your question. Yeah, okay, we're 57 minutes in. Again, last thing here I want to ask is, huge thanks for coming. I want to do more of these. I really, really love answering your questions. And give me some feedback. I'd love to know whether I should do more of these. Did you like the fact that you could submit questions in advance? Should I not allow that? If there's anything I can do to make these better, more relevant, please let me know. I hope to do this maybe once a month. Yeah, great note from Penny around that question. It's a question of saving money, saving time. I sometimes think that's hard to know upfront, right? And so, people are resistant to change, and I always say because they should be, because what they're doing clearly works. So yeah, it's a good point. Okay, I'm gonna let y'all go. Really appreciate everyone joining. Next week, I think we're gonna do a more simple stream where I'm gonna do a sales workflow. And yeah, let me know in the chat. Let me know, just like tweet at me. Let me know how I can make these kind of Q&A sessions a little better. Robert, I did see your question. I'm happy to either tackle it on the next stream or we can talk on Twitter. I loved your question, by the way, and I really hope that we can get to it. And I think I have some great idea. Yeah, let me know. Watch the replay. Babas, thanks for joining. Really appreciate it. Hey, Chris, good to see you. Yeah, let me know. I want to do more of this Q&A stuff. Yeah, thanks, Robert. Drop some likes. I appreciate it. I'm going to get to your question. Cool. Okay. I'm going to see y'all next week with a more regular stream. We're going to do a sales workflow with Emery, my old boss, and I will see you then. Make sure to like and subscribe. Do all the good stuff. Bye, y'all. Have a good one.